Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gland Bodybuilding. Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you about the 48 to 72 hour rule for recovery from your workouts. So of course this is a truth that I clung to back in the days when I was reading Muscle and Fitness and all these magazines where they're pretty much adamant about, okay, this is the rule around training. And I do agree it's a good place to start when it comes down to understanding recovery and your muscularity and recovering from intense workouts. But one thing I will say is that some of these rules can hold you back when it comes down to certain scenarios. And you'll see that there are some truths that bodybuilders cling to, but if you look at some of the other sports, they don't necessarily cling to that recovery rule quite so fanatically. And if we talk about high rep ranges or low rep ranges, we also have to embrace the fact that perhaps there is a different amount of recovery needed, right? Unless, like, of course, if you are using heavier weights, you are breaking down the fast twitch fibers, which are thicker, bigger, tend to break down and have more damage. Also, you're putting more wear and tear on your ligaments, your tendons, your cartilage, all of these connective tissue type of scenarios. So one could argue that if you're using heavier weights, you might need a bit more recovery than, say, if you're just doing 25, 30 reps for a set. So based on this, one could argue that 72 hours might be too much recovery or too much time in between training if you're using a different rep range than, say, a powerlifter or a person who is straining around 5 or 6 reps in their sets as opposed to doing 15, 20, 30 reps. But of course, because I was clinging to the 72-hour rule when I was 19 and 20 years old, there were some techniques or some types of training that were out of my radar, right? I didn't even think that that was a possibility that you could break that 72-hour rule. I thought it was sacred, right? Oh, I can't train the chest again within 3 days, otherwise I'm just breaking everything down and I'm not going to grow. And of course, once I stumbled across 2-day split type programs and I started to experiment with them after I'd hit a plateau with 3-day splits and 4-day splits, I started to notice that an interesting thing started happening. I started to go up in strength without having to use as heavy a weight. I started to feel more in shape every time I trained. And at the same time, I started to also blast through that plateau that I was stuck at for a long period of time. So not only did I not have to use heavy weight every workout or most workouts, sometimes I'd be doing moderate weights or, sets of 20, sets of 15, sets of 25, sets of 10, sets of 8. I'd be moving the rep ranges around accordingly, like I talked to you guys about. But at the same time, I started to notice that I was getting more results, but yet I was training the body parts every 48 hours with less volume. So I did that for quite a long time and got some great results with it. And of course, then I started to experiment with whole body workouts from time to time. Now, of course, this started to happen because I was training clients at the gym, and sometimes they'd ask me to show them how to train. And of course, I'd be showing them an exercise and maybe I'd already trained that body part the day before. And I'd feel these great, wicked pumps from it. I'd feel really good once I started training with my client. And I started to say, geez, why don't I do this a bit more often and see how I feel? Now, of course, once I started doing that, I started to put on more muscle. People would say to me, like, what are you doing? Why are you getting bigger? What's going on? You're looking great. What's happening? I said, oh, no, I'm just training quite a bit. And I started to train a bit more frequently. I started to, let's just say, have full body workouts here and there or high frequency type of training that was breaking the 48-hour rule of rest and recovery. My God, right? So what I was saying is that I was clinging to this truth that was told to me back in the 90s, right? And late 90s. And then once I started to investigate whether that was true under different circumstances, I started to realize that that 48 to 72 hour rule was not so set in stone. It was good to start with, but at the same time, depending on the rep ranges, depending on the volume you're using, you could get some good results with a bit higher frequency here and there. Now, of course, you can burn out from anything, and you can burn out from doing whole body workouts every day. I'm saying you can do that, and I have burned out from it. I've tested the limit, right? But the point is that for certain periods of time, I found that you could break that 48 to 72 hour rule and get better results than just adamantly sticking to that recovery. Now, on the flip side of this, I have met some people with unbelievably great development that rest for 4 or 5 days in between training a body part, sometimes 6 days. So it's gonna also be dependent on your own constitution. How does your body respond? So I just had a bit of a debate with a guy in the comments about this whole issue. And he was stuck in the whole thing that, Jason, you just got to get to the point, tell us the simple truths. I'm sorry, but this channel is not about the simple truths. This channel is about you investigating the simple truths and finding out whether they apply to you or not. Because I've found so often that because there's these steadfast rules out there, some of those rules are keeping you from realizing your potential. And only through you growing in awareness, rather than just following blindly what's told to you, can you find out what is true for you. That's it. So yeah, that's my MO for this channel. I'm not here just to repeat the simple stuff. I'm here to help you understand that some of the rules apply generally under general circumstances, but they're negotiable depending on your individual situation. And this can help you get way more results over the long run. So yeah, 48 to 72 hours, good place to start, but you will find that sometimes higher frequency is a great way to turbo boost your results in your gains and your coordination. You just don't want to be using super heavy poundages if you are doing that for the most part, because most people will need more recovery when they're doing the super heavy weights. And as an example of this, say you have a labrum injury, like say you dislocate a shoulder or something, the doctors will always tell you, immobilize that shoulder for 2 or 3 months, and then don't do anything high velocity or under weight or tension for about 6 months. The reason why is because it takes a long time for cartilage and tendons to heal. Now, when you're using super heavy weights, 5 rep ranges, 4 rep ranges, you're straining, you are putting more stress on those denser tissues, which take longer periods of time to heal. So that's why, if you're powerlifting or if you're lifting heavy poundages all the time, you might need a little bit more rest in between days of training, because those denser tissues also need to recover, and they recover much slower than muscle tissue does. So for bodybuilding, we want to understand how all these processes work and start to work with them instead of against them, and therefore you get more results in the long run. Mountain. So I hope this helped you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgalantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.